I'm Ruth and this is Tom, and we live in Bourneville with our 4 children aged 10, 8 and twins who are 3.
We're asking the question, can a family live without a car in Birmingham? We've just sold ours, so we're in the process of finding out the answer. And many may think we're mad to even ask this question because we do live in a very car-centric city. However, I discovered that in the 2011 UK census, over a third of Birmingham households didn't own a car or van at that point. Now, some of those people might not have had a choice about that for whatever reason, but for those of us that do have a choice, why might we choose not to have a car? There are a number of reasons, but some that I wanted to pick out were the high energy usage of car travel and what that means for climate change. Air pollution contributes to many early deaths, both locally and globally, although we don't always like to think about it too much. And just simply safety. That we all like to think we're good. We all like to think we're good drivers, but it only takes a very, very brief lapse of concentration to have very serious consequences.
Yeah, and these things that Tom just talked about, I think, really strongly link with our faith as Christians. So, as Christians, we believe that God created the world, this amazing planet for us to live in, and we believe that we should be good stewards of that, to protect it, to look after it, to use our resources as wisely as possible. And also think it sort of ties in with Jesus' commandment to us for loving our neighbours. And one way in which we can do that is to try and think about the impact of our actions, and particularly negative impact that could have on people, which, driving could be harmful to health, it could hurt people. And I think it's also linked to tackling social injustices. So, is it fair that people who can't afford to drive or own a car, for example, is it fair that they should live in a car-dominant society, such as the city that we live in? And before we lived in Birmingham, we lived in Cambridge for 7 years, and that is a smaller and much less car-dominant city. We mainly walked and cycled and got occasional public transport there. We did own a car, mainly for getting out of Cambridge, so day trips out to the countryside and also visiting family who lived in different cities. When we moved to Birmingham about 7 years ago now, we wanted to try and have a similar kind of lifestyle, so walking, cycling, using public transport in the city, and we were very privileged to be able to sort of set up life like that here. The house we live in is in walking and cycling distance of school, work, shops, local amenities. And so we were able to do that, and we still used our car to occasionally go further in the city beyond our local community, and then also out of the city again to mainly visiting family and days out. But it wasn't all plain sailing.
No, well, there were a few little bumps along the way. Funnily enough, church was actually one of them, because the church we immediately felt drawn to when we first moved to Birmingham was a half-an-hour walk away. That was fine with our older children. When the twins came along, it was a bit less fine for logistical reasons. We eventually moved to Bourneville Riverside, which enables us to walk every week, which is good. School runs were also very challenging. Toddler twins don't always walk in the right direction or even the same direction. It really wasn't very safe walking with them. There's lots of cars around trying to drop children off, but also there was very little parking, so even using the car ourselves wasn't really going to help us. We eventually solved that problem by buying an adapted bike that the twins can both sit on the back of.
And that was about a month in the end before the first COVID-19 lockdown. So yeah, and there, of course, we couldn't go anywhere anyway, or much beyond our local community. We did get into a lot of cycling with the children, so they'd always done cycling, they'd been riding a bike for a long time, but we started to do some road cycling. We explored further on the segregated routes that we have in Birmingham. We explored routes mainly for exercise to begin with, but actually then we found places we could go with children cycling that were useful to us as well for after lockdown. And then after lockdown, I tried to take the car out one day and it broke down. I needed a really expensive repair, and we decided that for so little, we used it so little that it really wasn't worth spending the money that it was going to cost to repair it. So the future, what does that look like without a car for us now? I think once we're able to, we will use more public transport, so both within the city and out of the city, for example, getting trains to go and see family rather than cars. We may still hire the odd car. There are local car clubs such as Co-Wheels for short-term hires or longer-term hires, say for a week. And that it may be that there are some journeys that actually the car really is the best tool for the job. But if we have to make that decision based on necessity at the time, rather than just jumping in our own car on our own drive, then I think it will make us think more. And also, I think cycling is going to be really key to the future for us. What's the best thing about not having a car?
Cycling!
Cycling!